4 powerful franchise features that every small business owner needs to know starting today. Let's get to class. One of the greatest challenges that we are faced with in the marketplace is the challenge of accurately apportioning stuff. That if we are talking about a subject matter, it's important that we accurately deal with it. One of the challenges that we might have, particularly in the marketplace, is talking about something with something entirely different in your mind. It's one of those things that is the greatest weakness at the marketplace, that we are more often than not talking about a subject matter that we haven't qualified the level of appropriateness that we approach that subject matter with. It's a greatest challenge in the marketplace. It's a greatest challenge that we have in emerging market spaces as well as traditional market space. I am known for this one phrase, that it is important for an individual to identify an appearance of something. Whenever we are dealing with intellectual property, we have always said that the most enviable place is for an individual, an organization, to identify the appearance of intellectual property. Intellectual property makes appearance. Intellectual property is not cast on stone. Intellectual property is different from one person to another. And that is why I always tell us that whenever you think of intellectual property, you should not really restrict yourself to copyright. Most of us, whenever we talk about intellectual property, we always think of copyright. We always think of trademark. Those are features of intellectual property. One can actually have intellectual property and not demonstrate copyright. One might actually have intellectual property and not express trademark. So it's similarly important that even when we are talking about franchise and how as a small business owner you can take advantage of your available franchise possibilities, it's important that we approach that subject matter with that understanding. As an individual, do I have the ability to identify the appearance of franchise possibility? It's important for all of us to understand that franchising is an intellectual property facility. So the same way we would approach intellectual property is the same way we ought to approach franchising, because franchising comes from intellectual property. You cannot fully appreciate your franchise possibilities without taking into consideration your intellectual property capacities. It's one of those areas of conversations that as entrepreneurs, we really need to assess for ourselves. How fit am I to consider intellectual property? How fit am I to consider franchise possibilities in my venture, in my career, in my life, all around me? It's one of those things that we really need to factor. And these 4 franchise features are some of those easily available, easily recognizable features that every business has. This is not something that is a preserve for the few. This is not something that is niche. This is something that every business as at now has. Whether you're aware of it or not, every venture has it. Every entrepreneurial venture has it. And so what are some of the learning objectives in this class? This class is specifically tailored to help the student identify these 4 objectives. 1, this class is designed to help you, the student, familiarize yourself with the distinctive attributes of a franchise. And it's very important that we understand that franchise has features. There are certain features that if you don't see in your venture as at today, maybe you're not ready to franchise. Not that you cannot franchise, it's just a matter of readiness. Is it something that you can readily take advantage of? The other learning objective is this class is designed to confirm to the student how available franchising is to them. One of those unfortunate questions that I come across more often is this, Mr. Guang. Is franchising something that is available to my business? Is franchising something that is available to me as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a business leader? I want to tell you that franchise is available to you. And this class will, at the end of it, confirm that to you. The other learning objective is this class is designed to enable the student to be vigilant with the appearance of these features. From today and after this class, I would want you to be very comfortable to identify an appearance of a franchise possibility. We have always defined a franchise possibility to mean that component that when you have it, it can give you an opportunity to explore a franchising relationship. A franchise possibility is different from a franchise option. A franchise possibility is that component in your business, that component in your processes, that component about how you go about your business, that you can structure a franchise relationship around it. It can be your logo, it can be a product, it can be a process. So we need us to be very vigilant to identify such appearance. And the last learning objective is this class is meant to help the student to cultivate franchising dreams around their entrepreneurial ventures. At the end of all these classes, our hope is you, the student, will begin to have dreams, have desires of franchising. You will begin to start looking at your business through franchise eyes. Start looking at your product through franchise eyes. Start looking at how you have situated yourself, how you have positioned yourself in your marketplace, and you start entertaining the franchise possibilities. Now, the first feature that I would really want us to appreciate, and this is a feature that happens at all of us. If we don't have this feature, then franchising conversations might not be available to us. This is one feature that when we lack, we might not be ready to franchise. I've always told us that franchising is available to all of us. It's only a matter of preparedness. It's only a matter of readiness. How ready am I as an entrepreneur to start franchising? How ready am I to develop franchise relationships around my product, around my service, around my practice, around my value proposition? What are those things that if I was just a little deliberate, I can structure a franchise relationship around? Franchises, in all observation, are business entities. So it is important for us to first understand that if we are to approach any franchising conversation, we must approach franchising conversation from the point of, do I have an availability of a formal entity? That is the first feature. I would want you to understand, however, regardless of how people have structured their franchise relationships, one of those things that is constant in all scenarios, in all situations, is they are formal entities. So one of the first places, the initial place that any person should actually qualify for ourselves is this: do I have an entity? Because it is that entity that gives birth to a franchising relationship. Franchises are not born out of air. Franchise possibilities are not born out of air. In order for us to take advantage of franchising, we need to have legal capacity. Legal capacity in business begins from the nature of your entity. You need to have that ability that at law, My business is a distinct personality from the owner. My business is a distinct personality from the founders. My business is a distinct personality from the shareholders. We need to have that line of demarcation between us and our ventures. We need to separate ourselves from our ventures so our venture can take a life form of its own. In intellectual property, we always say every idea has a life form of its own. Every work, every business has a life form of its own. Every product has a life form of its own. If you were to look at any franchise business globally, you will first appreciate that that franchise business came from another entity. If you were to look at KFC, for instance, the KFC franchise grew out of a recipe. The KFC is actually structured around a recipe. That recipe is the KFC franchise. Of course, now they have built it and now they have developed it further. But the initial place was the KFC franchise actually grew out of a recipe. The James Bond franchise grew out of a simple story, a spy story. So that spy story is what gave rise to a James Bond franchise. As an entrepreneur, you need to arrive at the kernel of your business from which franchise relationship can originate. It is important that if we appear at the marketplace, we must qualify the capacity of appearance. The capacity of appearance at the marketplace is we must appear as a legal entity. It's one of those things as an entrepreneur you need to have for yourself. Are you a legal entity? How separate are you from your business? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you, good thing, the most progressive part of the Kenyan 2015 business company law is the provision that today as a Kenyan, you can own a limited liability company as a sole proprietor. That is one of the most progressive aspects of that statute. And it's important that we gauge ourselves on that. I would advise all of us, if we are to have dreams, I would advise all of us, franchise dreams, I would advise all of us to consider having legal capacity. I would actually consider you incorporating your venture, whichever form it will take, that I leave up to you and your entrepreneurial wishes, your entrepreneurial interest and your entrepreneurial desires. But you need to have a legal capacity. Franchises stand on the strength of your legal capacity. The only people that appear at the marketplace are people with legal capacity. That is the first one. The second feature of any franchise relationship is something called exclusivity. Exclusivity is a very viable conversation, very loaded conversation, that if you identify as an entrepreneur that there is a level of exclusivity that you have, that is one of the most easily convertible avenues to have a franchising relationship. What do you know that no one else in your space knows? That is exclusivity. The first instance of all exclusivity is, what do I know? And that is why I always encourage all entrepreneurs to have this level of confidentiality, have this level of privacy. One of those things that really hampers on entrepreneurship is the ease at which we showcase our ideas online. There is this urge that we have, I don't know where it came from, that nowadays we need to prove to people that we are doing something. At the end of it all, we end up making grave mistakes. We end up showing people our ideas before time. Do you know something that no one else does in the marketplace? Do you know how to make something? Do you know how to stitch like no one else? Do you know how to do something? That I leave to you. So that if you can tell me, Mr. Gwang, I know how to put together this in a way that no one else can, then that will give you an opportunity to have a franchise relationship. If we can go back to the KFC analogy earlier, what is KFC? KFC originally was just a unique way of preparing chicken. Unique way. And to Colonel Sanders, it was something that no one else had and no one else could. But it was something, if people can be taught, people can arrive at the same result Colonel Sanders arrived at. So that exclusivity gives them the ability to take advantage of franchising possibilities. It's very important as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, a small business owner, as a corporate leader, a business leader, a corporate executive. We need to understand in our businesses, in our markets, what do we know that no one else does? Have we conducted research that is proprietary to us? Have we brought knowledge in the marketplace that is actually proprietary to us? That is something that all of us need to understand. The other thing is, do you have a shortcut into the market that everyone else would wish they had? If you think about it, franchise relationships are merely shortcuts. Franchise relationships are shortcuts to doing something, so that I don't spend hours and hours on end. I have this shortcut to fixing chicken. I have this shortcut to doing something. I have this shortcut to writing about something. If the franchise is structured around a writing material, if this franchise is structured around a film, a story, I have a shortcut. We know a James Bond storyline. So that is a shortcut. The other component of shortcut to franchises is franchises are shortcuts to reaching the market. Franchises have put in place a very exclusive relationship on how you can distribute a product. That is one of those things that is very enviable, that if every entrepreneur can have access to, then every entrepreneur can enjoy what the franchisor has built. In order for us to take advantage, particularly for a small business owner, I would want you to ask yourself today, what shortcut do I have? In my practice as an advocate, what shortcut do I have? In my practice, in my medical practice, as a doctor, as a dentist, what are the shortcuts do I have? In my business as a garage, a car garage, what are those shortcuts do I have? Do I have shortcuts in delivery of product, in supply of products? Do I have that shortcut? That is one of those things that will give you actually something that you can convert into a franchising relationship. If you have an access that no one else has, if you have a shortcut to a supplier, to a manufacturer that no one else has, you can structure your franchise relationship around that. The other one is, do you have any existing relationships that any entrepreneur would be interested to have? Exclusivity is one of those interesting areas of conversation. One such area of exclusivity is, whom do you have relationship with at the marketplace? Which distributor, which wholesaler do you have a relationship with? Which supplier do you have a relationship with? It's very important that if you can identify those three, then you have a very unique opportunity to build a franchise possibility. A franchise possibility is that thing that you can take advantage of and cultivate a franchising relationship around it. The third feature that I would want all of us to appreciate is the feature of intellectual property. Intellectual property is one thing that everyone has. If we were just to look at it, we might be competitors in the same market, but our approach is entirely different. So one's approach can begin to crystallize for them their intellectual property. So if we are just deliberate, and we go back to that word, deliberate. As an entrepreneur, we need to be deliberate. That as an entrepreneur and as someone who is bringing value to the marketplace, what have I identified as intellectual property in my product? What have I identified as intellectual property in my service? It's very important that as an entrepreneur, you get very comfortable to identifying the appearance of your intellectual property. Your intellectual property and the different levels of appearance it makes give you diverse possibilities to explore franchising that you can take advantage of. Intellectual property appears. It is not something that, do I have intellectual property? It is only a question of, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a business leader, have you identified how intellectual property makes appearance on you? Have you identified how intellectual property makes appearance in your business processes? Have you identified how intellectual property makes appearance in your value propositions? Intellectual property is one of the most easily accessible possibilities that any small business owner you can structure your franchise around. You can structure your franchise around your logo. You can structure something around your corporate color. You can structure a franchise relationship around your trade dress. So the possibilities are endless, but the beginning point is an awareness. All of us need to have that awareness that these are the intellectual property in my business, and as at today, I'm very comfortable with this intellectual property. These are the things I can do from my intellectual property, and this is how I can take advantage of my intellectual property. Last but certainly not the least feature in franchising, a franchise feature that every entrepreneur needs to be keen about, is the feature of a contractual relationship. If you think about it, a franchise is simply a business entity that cultivates other business entities through contractual relationships. That if I was to go to the franchisor will only give me access to the proprietary as material. Proprietary simply means something someone owns. So the franchisor gives me a limited access. That limited access is determined by the contract relationship I share with the franchisor as a franchisee. I would want you to start taking your contractual relationships very seriously. Because if there is one feature that all of us have, no one appears at the marketplace without any contractual relationship. No one. As long as you appear at the marketplace, that is confirmation enough that there is a contract that has made it possible for you to come to the marketplace. Either that contract is you are the performer, the person with the duty to perform, or you are the person who stands on the side of enjoying the contractual benefits. Contracts are very interesting facilities that every entrepreneur needs to master and to be comfortable with. A contract gives rise and a contract limits the extent of any franchise relationship. A franchise is a business entity that allows other business entities to bring to the marketplace what the franchisor has actually developed. That allowance, that thing that distinguishes a franchise from a license, is a contractual relationship. From today, from today, I would want us to be very keen with our contractual relationships. What was my level of participation in putting together this contract? What was my level of participation in performing this contract? And if I was to improve how I perform this contract, how would that turn out to my favor as a potential franchisor? as a potential person that wishes to cultivate a franchise relationship around my business. Those are some of the most powerful available franchise features that everyone has. A doctor who runs their own private clinic has that. Someone who runs a hardware has that. Someone who runs a car wash has that. Someone who runs a boutique has that. Someone who runs a second-hand clothing joint has that. Someone who runs a dealership, a car dealership has that. Whatever you're doing, there are some of those franchise features that all of us have. What we really want is for you to begin taking advantage of your franchising possibilities. If you have been in business and you have been going about your business in one way, what if there was another effective way to go about your business? What if there was another available route for you to go about your business? What if there was a much more easier, much more fulfilling, much more profitable way of how you can go about your business? That is what I wanted this class to help you understand. Franchising is that possibility. Whether you're a real estate developer, whether you're a car mechanic, franchising is that possibility. Whether you run a salon or a barber shop, franchising is that possibility. Whether you run an audit firm, franchising is that possibility. Whether you run a legal practice, franchising is that possibility. So if we can just be a little deliberate and begin to identify this appearance of these features, then we can take tremendous possibility of our franchising opportunities. This has been a very interesting class. So maybe you might think of, I might have left something that maybe is a franchise feature. I would be very much interested to hear what you have to say in the comment section. My name is Omuga Ogwang, and I'm the principal at Franchise and Licensing Institute. We are the premier intellectual property practice in the African continent. We wish to contribute to your business how you can take advantage of franchising and realize your entrepreneurial dreams. Thank you so much for your time. If you found this content valuable, I would really appreciate a subscription. Just subscribe, press that bell button, and just share the live. My name is Ogwang. I will see you next time.